bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya.
daṇḍa-dharo rājā prajānām iha yojitaḥ rakṣitā vrītā sveṣu setuṣu sthāpitā pṛthak. So, a significant point that is being made over here by Pṛthu Maharaj is that he acknowledges that he has been made the king by the grace of the Supreme Lord. And because he has been made the king by the grace of the Supreme Lord, it is his responsibility to protect the citizens from all danger, plus give them employment according to their respective positions in the social order. So, according to the Vedic system, and if the society is based on the Vedic way of life, then there is no question of even unemployment. In this verse and purport, it is clearly stated that based on the division of the social orders and based on the quality that the individual possesses, everyone in the society is employed according to his ability. So then, there is no question of unemployment. It is being stated in the purport that it is the duty of the king or the government not only to provide employment, but also to make sure that the employment is given according to one's abilities. That is, if a person is qualified to do a particular job, he must be given. But what we see presently is just the opposite. First of all, a lot of the people can't get a job even if they want a job. And secondly, a person is just doing any job in order to maintain his livelihood. Also, the monarch or the head of the state, he considers himself to be an agent of the Lord. And because he considers himself to be an agent of the Lord, he understands that all living beings are created by the Lord. And because all living beings are created by the Lord, it is his business to give protection to all of them, including the animals. And this is signified by the word prajāyate iti prajā. For example, when Maharaj Parikshit saw that someone was attempting to kill a cow, he at once drove that person out of his kingdom. Because the Sanskrit word praja means population. The present day leaders all over the world misunderstand this word praja. Praja just doesn't mean human population that has come out of the mother's womb. But praja also means that population which is in the mother's womb or which is in the form of species that have lesser intelligence. So the important point is that the present day understanding of the world leaders is completely illusory. Instead of trying to be exemplary in their private lives and public lives, the leaders today of society are just the opposite. They're not exemplary in the area of self-realization. They're just becoming exemplary in the area of sense gratification. So, the Bhagavatam gives us information of even other Vedic monarchs who were completely God-conscious and whose outlook in terms of their responsibility was similar to Maharaj Pṛthu. So Maharaj Pṛthu was an idle, God-conscious monarch. Then there's the example of Maharaj Yudhishthira, who was also an ideal, God-conscious king. It is said that Maharaj Yudhishthira's enemy has never been born. He was so God-conscious that he had absolutely no enemies. And then there's the example of Lord Ramachandra, who was so concerned about the welfare of the people that he would walk in the night in disguise to find out if the people had any complaints. And if he found any complaints, he would try to solve it. This is the example of Bali Maharaj, and there's the example of Maharaj Sibbi, who even offered the flesh from his own body in order to protect a pigeon who came to him for protection. The head of state means taking responsibility, spiritual responsibility. That is, the head of the state takes the spiritual responsibility that somehow or the other I must make sure that everyone in the state can be protected and guided on the path back to Godhead. And Maharaj Sibbi displayed how a God-conscious king will even sacrifice his own flesh in order to protect someone who comes to him for protection. Like when the pigeon came, who was being chased by the eagle, Maharaj Sibbi gave the pigeon complete protection. And he told the eagle that I cannot let this pigeon go away. And if you want, you can take the flesh from my body equal to the weight of this pigeon. So the point is that a God-conscious king or the head of the state is willing to make sacrifices also in order to protect the weaker sections of the society and not just worry about his personal sense pleasure. So the leaders or kings, instead of being the representatives of the Lord, instead of acting like the representatives of the Lord today, are just specializing in the areas of sense gratification. For example, in the Middle East countries where there is a lot of oil and hence a lot of wealth, the kings are utilizing this wealth just for their own sense pleasure. They are making a big show that our country is being run on Islamic principles by banning prostitution and liquor consumption in public, but they themselves are engaging in these illicit activities behind closed walls and in areas outside their own country. So the Srimad Bhagavatam states, however, that any individual, whether it be the king or whether it be a pauper, any individual who thinks that sense gratification is the goal of life is certainly a madman. Nunam pramata karute vikarma yadendriya priyataya apranoti na sadhu manyayita atmano yam asanapi kleshada asadeha. The Bhagavatam is saying that Nunam pramata, that is, one who considers that performing vikarmic activities, Nunam pramata kurute vikarma. Vikarma means activities which are contrary to religious principles. The Bhagavad Gita states that any activity that the individual performs falls in one of the three areas. Karmic activities are those where one follows the karma kanda portion and the goal is elevation to higher planets. Then there is vikarmic activities which are against the religious principles. And then there are akarmic activities which mean activities performed according to the laws of the Lord. So the Bhagavatam is saying, Nunam pramata kurute vikarma yidendriya priyataya apranoti. That is, when one considers that sense gratification is the goal of life, then such an individual definitely becomes mad. And this mad individual is not realizing that this human body which he has is already giving him misery. Asanapi kleshada. Kleshada means misery. That this human body is already giving him misery. And the reason he has this body is because he has performed vikarmic activities in his past life. So now, instead of stopping vikarmic activities, because he has become mad after sense gratification, he is again performing vikarmic activities. And such an individual must be considered to be definitely a madman. So the point is that anyone who is engaging in sense gratification is to be considered to be a madman. This is not our statement, this is found in the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So there are essentially two paths. The path of sense gratification and the path of self-realization. So those who are mad, they pursue the path of sense gratification. And those who are intelligent, they pursue the path of self-realization. And they pursue this path with the greatest of determination. Because on the path of self-realization also, there will be a lot of impediments, difficulties, obstacles. But if one is convinced, then success awaits such an individual. So Rupa Goswami states in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that if the path of self-realization is available, please take to it at any cost. Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Mati Kriyatam Yadi Katopi Labhyate. Rupa Goswami is stating that if this path of self-realization is being made available, please, he says, please take to it at any cost. Because if this opportunity is missed, he says, you may not get this opportunity again. So he is saying that if this Krishna consciousness or the path of self-realization is available, please take to it at any cost. That take to Krishna consciousness at any cost. And what is the cost? For everything you have to pay a price, isn't it? If you pay a high price, you can get a good car. And if you pay low price, you get something ordinary. So what is the price for taking to Krishna consciousness? Rupa Goswami says, Tatra lolyam api mulyam ekalam. That is, the price that you have to pay for taking to this Krishna consciousness is simply your eagerness. So the cost is Tatra lolyam api mulyam ekalam. This is the cost for taking to Krishna consciousness. Simply your eagerness. If one is eager, then this Krishna consciousness will appear to be very easy. So the first point that Rupa Goswami is making that take to this Krishna consciousness if it is available, then at any cost. Then he says that the cost that you have to pay for taking to this Krishna consciousness is simply your eagerness. And what is the result of this then? That is the third step. The third stage is that tachadhana munayo jnana viragya yuktaya. That is, once you take to this Krishna consciousness, then this will result in the following. It will result in jnana. Jnana means knowledge. And it will result in jnana by which jnana viragya yuktaya. Jnana means knowledge which will result in viragya. So the point is that if we take to this path of self-realization enthusiastically with our eagerness, then this will result in knowledge. And this knowledge will mean knowledge that will create in us the spirit of viragya, renunciation. So, this jnana must result in vairagya. Jnana is very often misunderstood. For example, the Bhagavad Gita talks about many different subject matters, karma, jnana, bhakti. But what is jnana? Jnana doesn't mean knowledge by which one speculates about the Supreme Lord. Jnana means knowledge by which one understands his constitutional position in relationship to the Lord. And karma doesn't mean just performance of duties, but karma means performance of duties which result in renouncing the fruits for the pleasure of the Lord. Karmani vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachara. So, we must understand what is vairagya. In order to understand what is vairagya, we must also understand what is the real meaning of karma, what is the real meaning of jnana. And if we understand the real meaning of karma and jnana, then this will result in taking to the path of bhakti with determination. So, vairagya means that when the opportunity for sense gratification is there, I voluntarily abstain from it. For example, if a poor man in India says he doesn't want to go to America, there is no vairagya. He can't afford it. If you're passing in front of a big car showroom and you say, I don't want that Mercedes, there is no vairagya. If you don't have the money to buy it, you're forced into it. You're forced that you can't buy it. But if the opportunity for sense gratification is there, but I still abstain from it. Why? Yuktaya, for a higher cause, for pleasing the personality of Godhead, then that is vairagya. That is, I even perform an action against my wishes, but I'm performing it strictly for the pleasure of the Lord. That is vairagya. So, the point that is being made is that in order to cultivate a spiritual path, in order to cultivate Krishna consciousness, one must develop vairagya. And this vairagya will come after jnana is there. Prabhupada used to give the example that the desire to please our senses is there, but we have to rectify it. Just like, for example, a man has a diseased eye. So if an eye is diseased, you don't pull the eye out, but rather you remove the cataract so you can see again. So similarly, the senses have to be purified, and they have to be purified by constant engagement in service to the personality of Godhead. Just like, for example, if a person is physically weak and there's an epidemic of flu or hay fever, whatever, then the weak person will get exposed to that sickness very fast. But if somebody has a very healthy body, then even if there's a big epidemic, it won't affect him. Isn't that a fact? So just like that, in spiritual life also, if the senses are constantly being employed in the service of the Lord, then this epidemic of Maya will not be allowed to penetrate and capture you. But if we are not constantly engaged in devotional service, that means we are weak spiritually. And if we are weak spiritually, then this Maya or disease will easily catch us. Therefore, Narada Muni states in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Amayo yascha bhutanam jayata yena suvrata tad evahi amayam dravyam na punati chikitsatam. Narada Muni is stating that, is it not a fact that the same activities which are the cause of the disease, if applied in a therapeutic manner, become the cure of the disease? So the point is that our goal is to make ourselves spiritually healthy. Say, if the goal is to make ourselves spiritually healthy, then the next question is, how do we realize that goal? And that is being informed by Narada Muni. That to utilize our senses, to engage in activities which have had a therapeutic effect. The therapeutic effect in this case is the process of pure devotional service. Just like, for example, milk. Milk is the cause of a bad stomach. But the same milk, if it is applied in a therapeutic manner, namely in the form of yogurt, then the same milk becomes the medicine for a bad stomach. So Narada Muni is saying that those same activities which take you to hell, if they are applied, if those same senses are applied in the process of pure devotional service, then the same senses can be the cause of your liberation. So as Narada Pancharatna states, Sarvapadi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam reshikena sevanam bhaktir uchate. That is, in order to become free from the designations, designations means identification with the body, and identification with the body means identification with the senses, and identification with the senses means working to satisfy the senses. So these are all related. The first step is identification with the body, and this results in the fourth step, which is to work towards satisfying these senses. So, if one wants to free himself from all these designations, then there is only one solution, and that is Rishikena Sevanam Bhaktir Uchate, to serve the personality of Godhead Rishikesha, who is the proprietor of the senses. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was describing to Sanatana Goswami different aspects of devotional service. He explained the word Atmarama. The word Atmarama also means that there are different types of transcendentalists. For example, there is one type of transcendentalist who is aspiring to serve the Lord. Then there is one who is absorbed in serving the Lord. Then there is one who may desire liberation. Then there is one who is already liberated. Then there is one who is actually engaged in his constitutional position of serving the Lord. So, after explaining the different meaning of the word Atmarama, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also explained that this word Atmarama also means three other things. It means, actually the word Atmarama has several meanings, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained three other meanings after this. That one is, Atmarama means perseverance. The other meaning of Atmarama is tolerance. And the third meaning of Atmarama is endeavor. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu concluded his teachings to Sanatana Goswami by saying that unless one endeavors to succeed on the spiritual path, one cannot succeed. And this is also confirmed in the Brihadaranyaka Purana. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quoted the Brihadaranyaka Purana to Sanatana Goswami to point out that unless one makes the effort, he cannot succeed on the spiritual path. So the point is that without making the effort, without making the endeavor, one cannot hope to succeed even on the spiritual path. Just like in material life, one cannot hope to become rich without making the effort. Similarly, one cannot hope to become spiritually rich without making the effort. So the conclusion of this point was that one should make the effort in order to succeed on this spiritual path. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu further pointed out different conditions by which one can be considered to be surrendered on the spiritual path. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Sanatana Goswami that one of the principles for surrender in spiritual life is one accepts everything that is favorable for devotional service, and he accepts this with determination. And along with this is the second point, one rejects everything that is unfavorable for devotional service, and he rejects it with determination. So we should reject with determination. That is, one may find it a little difficult to reject something, but we must reject with determination. Just like when you know you're getting a dangerous disease, you run to the doctor and pray, please get this disease out of my body, because you know that this disease will kill you eventually, because it's a dangerous disease. Similarly, the devotee, he rejects everything unfavorable with determination, because he knows that this thing which is detrimental to my spiritual progress, and if I don't get rid of it now, it will kill me spiritually. Another principle of surrender is that one understands that the Lord is the maintainer of everything. The materialists are thinking that they are the maintainers. But like King Pṛthu is stating in this verse, the Lord is the maintainer. And then since the Lord is the maintainer, his desires can only be fulfilled by the Lord. And then one understands that nothing can be fulfilled independent of the Lord. The different demigods are just the agents of the Lord, and they are not capable of fulfilling the needs of the individual. It is only the Supreme Lord who is. And lastly, the last principle of surrender is to consider oneself to be very low in the process of devotional service. To consider oneself to be totally insignificant. Not to think that I am so elevated, it's because of me that these things are happening. This is clearly explained by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Sanatana Goswami, that a devotee considers himself to be totally insignificant, and with that mentality he executes devotional service. In order to succeed on this self-realization path which Rupa Goswami is strongly recommending, we should be eager, and if we are eager, that will result in genuine vairagya, and as we understand genuine vairagya, we will understand also the principles of surrender, which includes rejecting everything that is unfavorable for devotional service. And if one pursues a path according to the instructions of the Lord, then the Lord guarantees that such an individual will never return to this material abode. So we should meditate on these topics that we hear from the revealed scriptures, such as the different principles of surrender, such as the price that one has to pay for becoming Krishna conscious, such as the meaning of karma, jnana and bhakti, such as the real mission of human life. And if we constantly meditate on these instructions of the revealed scriptures, then the desire for sense gratification will not develop. Then as soon as the desire for sense gratification comes, we will reject it, because we know that is detrimental to spiritual progress. But if we do not meditate on these divine instructions, if we do not listen to these divine instructions regularly, then our position will be spiritually weak. And just like as we said, a weak man can catch disease very fast. So if we are spiritually weak, then we can get diseased very fast. And the result of getting disease will be, we will say bye-bye to spiritual life. Godhead, the ancient eternal Godhead, who is foremost amongst all great personalities, obtained the opulence of his staunch reputation, which purifies the entire universe by worshipping the lotus feet of those Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. Brahmanya Deva Purusha Puratano Nityam Hari Yacharana Bhivandanat Vāpa lakshmin anapayanim yashal jagat pavitram cha mahatamagrani. So, there are two significant points over here. One is the description of the personality of Godhead. The personality of Godhead is being described as one who is ancient, eternal, and the foremost of all great personalities in possession of his opulences. And the other point that is being stressed over here is that even Lord Krishna, thou, he is eternal and the oldest and the supreme and the foremost, he obtained his reputation by worshipping the lotus feet of the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas. It is important for us to understand the assembly that King Pṛthu is addressing. King Pṛthu's father, King Vena, was cursed by the Brahmanas. He was cursed by the Brahmanas because King Vena, though he was a king, he did not understand his responsibility, that he should lead a God-conscious life. So King Vena was cursed by the Brahmanas to die, and King Pṛthu is the son of this King Vena. So the Brahmanas, King Pṛthu here is addressing an assembly of Brahmanas. So the Brahmanas are very happy because King Pṛthu, his father, had committed a lot of offenses at the feet of the Brahmanas. And though the Brahmanas had tried their best to reform King Vena, they were unsuccessful, and in the end they had to curse him. So in this section of the Bhagavatam, it's actually a series of verses, not just this verse. We see that King Pṛthu is highlighting the position of the Brahmana and the Vaishnava. In the verse that we discussed yesterday, reference was made to the position of the Vaishnava and the Brahmana, and in the purport Prabhupada had explained the difference between the Vaishnava and the Brahmana. So it is being assumed in this section of the Bhagavatam that the Brahmana is described as one who understands Vedesha sarvarahame vase vedayog, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the Brahmana is defined as one who understands the position of the Supreme Lord and his position, and one who has developed the qualities of the Brahmana which are described in the 18th chapter, like some of the Motapo Socham that we had briefly discussed yesterday. So the point is that it is very important that the great sages, including the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas, be honored properly. In the purport, Prabhupada gives the example of Lord Krishna, how he took care of his Brahmanical friend, Sudama Vipra. And it is also being mentioned that Lord Krishna himself, though he was the personality of Godhead, he offered the greatest respects to Maharaj Yudhishthira and Queen Kunti. So the point is that the Lord showed by his personal example how a great souls should be honored. This is the quality of a genuine devotee of the Lord, that he is very humble. Thou, Lord Krishna, was this personality of Godhead. Sudama Vipra, his friend, was very, very poor. But when Sudama Vipra came to him, he gave him the highest honor. Similarly, thou, he was the personality of Godhead. In front of Maharaj Yudhishthira and Kunti, Krishna displayed the maximum respect. Therefore, the great devotee, Narottam Das Thakur prays, Chadiya Vaishnava Seva Nistara Paya Che Keba. That is, without obtaining the mercy of the Vaishnava, the material desires of the living entity cannot disappear. Narottam Das Thakur says, Tandera Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanivasha Janme Janme Haya E Abhilasha. That is, that birth after birth, my desire is that I may get the opportunity to serve the great Vaishnavas. Because by serving the great Vaishnavas, I can be purified. The example cited very often is that of Narada Muni. Narada Muni was the son of a maid servant, but he got the opportunity to serve these great sages because his mother happened to be a servant in the house of the great sages. And because of this service that he had rendered to the great sages, in his next life he took his birth as the great sage and became the leader of the whole Vaishnava Sampradaya. The tragedy, however, is that in the present age, in reality, everybody is born as a Sudra. This is confirmed in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kalo Sudra Sambhava. In this age, everyone is born as a Sudra. Though one may take his birth in his so-called Brahmanical family, Krishnadas Kaviraj concludes, however, that everyone is a Sudra. And because everyone is a Sudra, the tragedy is that those who are born as a Sudra, they try to act as the Brahmana. In the Varaha Purana it is stated, Raksha kalim astriya jayate brahma yunishu. The tragedy is that in this Kali Yuga, these people are taking their birth as Rakshas. Rakshasa is one who is a demon, and they want to act like a Brahmana. So, as we said yesterday, this was one of the great achievements of our great spiritual grandfather, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who completely demolished the caste Brahmins. He completely destroyed them because he established that a Brahmin is on the basis of guna, not on the basis of birth. So the Krishna conscious position is that Brahman is accepted on the basis of qualification and not on the basis of birth. And if one is a genuine Brahman and a Vaishnava, he should be given the highest respect and he should be served. Not only are the Brahmins claiming hereditary rights, but even the Vaishnavas are claiming hereditary rights. And that is one of the reasons why, after Lord Chaitanya's disappearance, the Vaishnava Sampradaya also for some time was broken. The Vaishnavas are also claiming hereditary rights. That is, I'm born in the family of a Vaishnava, so I don't have to follow the rules, but I have to be respected as a Vaishnava. Just like, for example, in the city of Vrindavan Dham, there are so many temples, including the Baki Bihari temple, which is a very famous temple. And we see over there the existence of the caste Goswamis. Now these Goswamis are hereditary Vaishnavas. Their fathers were Vaishnavas, their grandfathers were Vaishnavas. But now, the present day generation, it is not acting like a Vaishnava. They are breaking the regulative principles that the Vaishnava is supposed to follow. But nevertheless, like the caste Brahmins, they are demanding equal right, equal respect. So, there is no such thing as hereditary Vaishnavas either. Those who want to claim respect just because of having taken birth in a Vaishnava family are also comparable to the Rakshas Brahmins who do not follow the rules that they are supposed to follow. So we have to understand everything through the eyes of the scriptures, and the intelligent devotee is one who recognizes one on the basis of qualification. So the point is, the Vedic scriptures do not support the existence of hereditary Brahmins or hereditary Vaishnavas. If one is qualified, then one can be respected. So the point being made is that the genuine Vaishnava and the genuine Brahmana, he must be respected. And as we said, this example was given by Lord Krishna. This was also displayed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Advaita Acharya. There's a nice story that when Advaita Acharya's father died, there's a custom that after the father dies, few days after, some foodstuff is offered to the Brahmins. So Advaita Acharya, after his father had died, he called Haridas Thakur. He offered foodstuff to Haridas Thakur. Now Haridas said, why are you taking the risk of feeding me with this prasad? Because I'm a Muslim. And if you feed me this prasad, then you will lose your reputation amongst the other Brahmins. But Advaitacharya replied that by feeding a Vaishnava like you, I'm feeding millions of Brahmins at the same time. So the point is that the Vaishnava is honored, the Brahmana is honored, and one of the ways of honoring a Brahmana and a Vaishnava is by offering them prashadam. So King Pṛthu has re-established a Brahmanical culture. His father, King Vena, had destroyed the Brahmanical culture, and King Pṛthu has re-established the Brahmanical culture. And when the Brahmanical culture is established, then the Brahman's transcendental position is easily understood. And when there is no Brahmanical culture, then the Brahman and the Vaishnava is just laughed at. For example, there is no Brahmanical culture in this Western society today. So when these Vaishnavas walk on the streets with shaven heads and saffron robes, people laugh at them because they do not understand the value of this Brahmanical culture. The genuine Brahman is one who is not hankering after wealth. The genuine Brahman is one who is self-satisfied and whose only anxiety and concern is to help establish the principles of God consciousness or to help establish the Brahmanical culture. For example, when Lord Ramachandra was ruling over this planet, he was very pleased with his Brahmanical advisors. So Lord Ramachandra one day called his Brahmanical advisors and said, I want to give you as much land as you want. You can have as much as you want. And the advisors said that we don't want more than what we need for our survival. So they only took what they needed for their survival. Whereas if this opportunity was given to the present day so-called caste Brahmins, they would have asked for the maximum. So this Krishna conscious movement is trying to re-establish the Brahmanical culture. In the Brahmanical culture, the Brahmana's position is recognized, the Vaishnava's position is recognized, and those who are pursuing the spiritual path understand also that the Brahmins and the Vaishnavas must be given the highest respect. Krishna Purana, it is stated that Namo Brahmana Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha Jagat Hitaya Krishna Govindaya Namo Namaha. There is Lord Shri Krishna is the prime protector of the Brahmanical culture and the cow. So we see these days that so many people are talking about God consciousness. So many people are talking about self-realization. If one was to count the number of groups that are advocating these principles, it would almost be impossible. But how can they talk about God consciousness, or how can they help establish God consciousness if the position of the cow and the Brahmana is not being recognized? If we are not understanding that the cow is sacred. Point is that the cow is very sacred, and in the Brahmanical culture, when the Brahmanical culture is in operation, then everyone is happy because then everyone is following the principles of God consciousness, and the animals, especially the cow, are also being protected. So the point is that the personality of Godhead is the Purusha. He is eternal, Nitya. He is the oldest being. And since he is perfect and devoid of any defects, his instructions should be taken seriously. So the personality of Godhead is being described by King Pṛthu to be ancient. The same point is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita also. Adyam Purana Purusham Nav Yovanam Cha. The Lord is the oldest living entity. And the Katha Upanishad also confirms that the Lord is eternal, Nityo Nityanam Chaitana Chaitananam. So the point is that the Lord is ancient, He is eternal, and the Lord is also complete within Himself, confirmed in the Ishopanishad. Om Purnam Adha Purnamidam. The Lord is complete, and all emanations from Him are also complete. But they are considered to be complete because there is complete facility within His creation to try and understand the Brahmanical culture, to try and understand the Lord, and to try and become self-realized. So the personality of Godhead resides wherever His devotees reside. So wherever the devotees of the Lord are there, wherever the devotees are worshipping the Lord is also actually present. And if we try to understand the instructions of the Lord, then the living entity will actually really realize any type of happiness. Otherwise, this human life will just be a waste and full of unhappiness. As we see in the present day society, the people are not interested in understanding this Brahmanical culture. They are just interested in understanding animalistic culture. And therefore, day by day we see that the society is getting more and more degraded. They are not interested in the special privilege that the human form of body is offering. And hence, they are wasting the human life just chewing the chewed. Punas punas charvita charvananam. In this verse, the word yet charna vivandanat is very significant. Lord, it is being explained that by Pṛthu Maharaj, that this Supreme Personality of Godhead attained its opulence by worshipping the lotus feet of the Brahmanas. So the point is that if one worships, offers respects to the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas, then anyone can realize the opulences. Here is crediting the service to the Brahmanas as being responsible for the Lord's opulence. So the point is that, the point that is being stressed is that by being respectful and offering service to the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas, all kind of opulences will be realized. And what is the opulence that the devotee desires? The devotee desires the opulence that he may have the determination to renounce everything that is unfavorable for cultivating Krishna consciousness and accept everything that is favorable for cultivating Krishna consciousness. This is considered to be the most auspicious desire for one who desires to succeed on the spiritual path. We see also in the purport that Prabhupada draws the difference between material opulence and spiritual opulence. Prabhupada explains that the nature of this material opulence is that it is very flickering. Today a person may be rich, tomorrow that same person can become poor. Material opulence doesn't stay for long with one person. It is stated in the Shastras that Lakshmi is very chanchala. Chanchala means very fickle. So Lakshmi Devi is very chanchala. Whereas the spiritual opulence of the devotee can never disappear. The spiritual opulence of a devotee is faith in the instructions of the spiritual master and the Lord and abiding by those instructions. So the spiritual opulence, as we had explained the other day, the devotee strives to decorate his body with the ornaments of devotional service. The materialist tries to decorate his body with clothes or nice jewelry, whereas the spiritualist's ornaments are these spiritual instructions, and that's the medium for his decorating his body. So in the case of the spiritualist who is decorating his body with spiritual instructions, the spiritual opulence never disappears. So the point is that the devotee is pleased by his spiritual opulence. Some of you may have heard the story of the great sage Madhvacharya, who This story was related even by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Sanatana Goswami. That is the story where a poor man went to an astrologer, and the astrologer said that your father has left behind a great fortune for you, but you're digging on the wrong side. Just dig on the eastern side of your house and this fortune will be found. Don't dig on the northern, southern and western sides. Because the analogy is that from the eastern side the sun rises, and when the sun rises the darkness automatically disappears. So the real opulence for the devotee is the opulence of following Krishna's instructions, the opulence of being able to glorify Krishna, and that is the standard of the devotee. And once the devotee is engrossed in cultivating the real wealth, then because of the light that he is receiving, the light of Krishna within the heart, gives him the knowledge by which he loses taste from what may appear to be materially attractive. So as the Bhagavad Gita says, prasade sarva dukhanam hanir aso pajayate. The devotee is self-satisfied. So how can one become self-satisfied? By becoming a good Vaishnava. A good Vaishnava is self-satisfied. This same point is also confirmed by Narada Muni when he was instructing the Prachetas. Narada Muni's instructions to the Prachetas are there in the 4th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Narada Muni is making the same point of self-satisfaction, just like the Gita says. Narada Muni is saying, Dayaya sarva bhateshu santushtayena kenava. One of the qualities of the Vaishnava is santushtya, that he is self-satisfied. The point to understand is that unless one is self-satisfied, he will not be able to free himself from material existence. He will not be able to free himself from material desires. So Narada Muni was instructing the Prachetas about the purpose of human life, and he says, Santushtayena kenava. That is the devotee of the Lord. He is satisfied in all respects. The Vaishnava's one of his qualities, he exhibits mercy. Dayaya sarva bhateshu, on all living entities. Santushtayena kenava. That he is satisfied on whatever the Lord presents to him. Further, Narada Muni says, Sarvarindhya shantya chatushyati ashu janardana. That there is Janardana, who is difficult to conquer, can be conquered if all the senses, Sarva means senses, if all the senses are brought under control. So the Vaishnava is one who decorates himself with spiritual qualities, who is very merciful, who is satisfied with whatever comes on its own accord, and who has complete control over his senses. And the Lord Krishna is, King Pṛthu is stating here that one who is a Vaishnava with these qualities, he must be honored and respected. And the example cited is here is that even of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who honored the great Brahmanas like Sadama Vipra. And when one is satisfied on what comes of his own accord, and when his senses are in control, and when he is merciful, then the following will result. Premanjana churutita bhakti vilochanaina santa sadaiva hideshu vilokayanti. Then one's eyes will be anointed with love of God. And when the eyes are anointed with love of God, then santa, all the time, sadaiva hideshu vilokayanti, then all the time one just wants to think about serving the Lord. So that is the position that one has to reach in order to really understand the personality of Godhead, who is adhokshaja, very difficult to understand. That is, to be self-satisfied, to control the senses, and then one will develop the desire to always think about the Lord. And then the personality of Godhead, who is adhokshaja, can be understood. And The position of such a Vaishnava is so great that his reputation stays forever. This was confirmed by Ramananda Roy when he was talking to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Ramananda Roy said that the reputation of a Vaishnava is so great that even when he returns to the Vaikuntha planets where he is glorified, even in the material planet, people still continue to glorify him. So this reputation can be acquired if one becomes a genuine Vaishnava, genuine devotee of the Lord. So if we want to establish the social standard in society, then we have to spread this Brahmanical culture. And unless this Brahmanical culture is spread, the society cannot be peaceful or happy. So the members of this Krishna conscious movement should manifest the quality of dayāya, which Narada Muni has also emphasized to be one of the qualities of the Vaishnava, and help spread this Brahmanical culture, which is very nicely explained in all the books written by Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.